Okay, today we're talking about algebraic expressions in chapter 1-3. And the very first thing we're going to do is take a statement and come up with a mathematical statement. So I give you the statement in English, and I want you to write the mathematical statement representing that. So the important thing that you need to know is to find those key words that mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So as I read this, I say 7 is less than is your key word, the number t. Less than actually means subtraction in mathematics. However, the trick with this is understanding that 7 is less than what. The what goes first. In this case, the what is t, so it goes in front. So I'm going to have t minus 7 because t is your larger value. And whenever you have subtraction or division, you have to be very careful. The what goes first. Ask yourself 7 less than what? What is t? T goes first, minus 7 goes second. Number 2, the sum of 11. Sum is a key word. That means addition. Of 11 and the product. Product is a key word as well. That key word there represents what? Multiplication. Of 2, and then it tells us, it says of 2 and what? This and tells us what we're actually multiplying together. So I'm going to have 2 and r that I'm multiplying together, and then I'm going to have the sum of that means plus 11. Number 3, Erin has $520. So in her hand, she has $520 and is earning. Earning means she's adding to her pot, so that is plus $75 each. Each is another keyword. Week. Each means you are going to multiply 75 times a variable, which we're going to use W for week. Number 4 example. You have 50 boxes of raisins. It's a lot of boxes of raisins. And are eating. So if you're eating them, are you adding to the pile or are you taking away from the pile? And the answer to that is you're taking away, so you are subtracting. 12 boxes each. Each means multiplication, so 12m for months. Okay? Next, plug and chug. Plug and chug is whenever you take a value that is given to you, such as a equals -4 and b equals 5, and you plug it into the expression and calculate using order of operations the answer to the value there. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's going to be 7. That's going to give me, I need to get rid of that, 7 parenthesis a is -4 plus 4. B is going to be 5 minus 8. So -4 plus 4 is 0. 3 plus 5 is, or 3 times 5 is 15. 0 times anything, that goes away, and I have 15 take away 8, which is 7. Next. I have x is 1. And y is 1/2. So if x is 1/2, or I'm sorry, if y is 1/2, that's squared. So I'm going to write that down 2 times so that you can understand where the value comes from. So I have 1/2 plus 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. So half is understood to be 0.50. 1/4 is understood to be 0.25 or a quarter, and 50 cents plus 25 cents is 75 cents, which is the same thing as 3/4. Notice how we use common sense to be able to get that calculation done. Like terms. Like terms are terms with exactly the same variable or variables with exactly the same exponents. So they have the same variable with the same exponents. So here we go. We are simply going to do our properties. So this negative is going to go in by multiplication, by the distributive property. This 2 goes in by the distributive property. 2 times -4 is -8m. And then you are going to combine like terms. Your like terms are negative 3k and positive 2k, which is going to give you a negative k. Then your next like terms are going to be negative m and negative 8m, which is going to give you negative 9m. And you're done. Next, simplify each of the following expressions in the lowest possible terms. So here we go. The goal in these problems is to identify when you need to keep the parentheses and when you do not need to keep the parentheses. Parentheses are only necessary when you are multiplying a value into them. So these problems have a huge amount of parentheses and not all of them are needed. So that's the very first thing we're going to do. So I'm going to look for any brackets, and I have some. So I recopy everything to the left of the bracket and the first term in the bracket. And then I come to this first parenthesis and I ask myself, do I need the parenthesis around the negative 3y? And the answer to that is no, you do not. So you drop it down and close the bracket. Go to the second parenthesis here, which is negative 5 plus x, and you ask yourself, is anything being multiplied into it? Meaning, is there anything attached to it by multiplication? And the answer to that is yes, the negative 2y is attached by multiplication. So we are going to go ahead and keep each of those parentheses. Why am I keeping the parentheses around the negative 2y? I'm keeping that there so that you understand it's multiplication rather than minus subtracting 2y. So let's go ahead and keep on going here. I distribute the negative into the bracket. I distribute the negative 2y into the negative 5 to give me plus 10y minus 2xy. Then I'm going to combine any like terms that you have. I have y's that are like terms, but there's no other like terms there, so I can simply drop down the negative 4x plus 13y minus 2xy. And then this is done. Okay? Next, 1/2 x squared minus y squared minus 5 over 2 x squared minus y squared. Here's what I need your brain to see. The parentheses are exactly the same, which means all I have to do is add their coefficients that are attached in front of them. So 1 minus 5 is going to be a negative 4 over 2 x squared minus y squared. Minus 4 over 2 is actually negative 2 times x squared minus y squared. This would be sufficient, or you can distribute that, making that negative 2x squared plus 2y squared. Exactly, the green and the red are exactly the same. Okay? Next, lots of parentheses there, so let's see what we can get rid of. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the negative down and drop the negative 2. Then I'm going to say, do I need those parentheses around the k minus 5m? The answer is yes, because the negative 2 is going into them. So then I go to the next parenthesis. Do I need that parenthesis around there? The answer to that is no, I don't. I can drop it. But I do need the parenthesis to the right of that because I'm going to distribute negative 3k into that. And I keep the parentheses around the negative 4x as well because that is attached by multiplication, and I don't want you to think that you are subtracting 4x. So now, what we're going to do is distribute inside the brackets. So I drop down the negative, and I distribute the negative 2 to give me negative 2k plus 10m. Go to the second parenthesis. And I'm going to take 3 times 14 to give me negative 42km plus negative 3 times negative 9 is a positive 27k. Close the bracket, drop down the negative 4x in parentheses. Now I'm going to simplify my bracket by combining any like terms. So at that point, negative 2k and 27k are my only like terms, and that's going to give me a 25k, dropping down the 10m minus the 42km, drop down the bracket, and the negative 4x in parentheses. From here, I'm going to then distribute the negative 4x. Drop down the negative in the bracket. That's going to give me negative 100kx minus 40mk. 42 times 4 is going to be 168 positive, because a double negative creates a positive, kmx. And then the last thing I'm going to do is distribute, and this gives us 100kx plus 40mx minus 168kmx. And that is done. Next, go to each one. These two are attached by multiplication, so simply multiply them. That gives you 36mn. Plus, drop down the half, combine like terms. That's going to give you a negative 9. Put that negative 9 over 1. Marry the tops, marry the bottoms, and that is done. The last example we're going to do is this one right here. So first things first, you're going to look for any unnecessary parentheses. So, do I need to keep the parentheses around these terms, 3 terms right here? The answer to that is no, you do not, so you simply drop it down. Drop down the bracket. Do I need these parentheses? I'm not multiplying anything in, so I drop them. I do not need those parentheses, so I drop them. So now I'm going to go ahead and distribute. I drop down everything to the left of the bracket, and I distribute the negative into the bracket. Ooh, I do not. Sorry. Before we do that, we needed to check for like terms. So now I need to look at my like terms, and I need to say, hey, those 7x squareds cancel out, and I drop down everything that's left. Then we distribute the negative, recopying everything to the left of the bracket. And then lastly, we combine like terms. The negative 11x squared drops down. This 4y squared and the negative 5y squared are going to become negative y squared. This negative 2y and the negative 6y is going to give you negative 8y, and then plus the 4x. And that is done. Those are the notes over section 1-3.